never witnessed the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Clean coal, meaning they're taking out coal, they're going to clean it.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Wednesday, it's midweek, and we've got a heavy show for you today. Yes, we're going to be talking a lot about the shooting that had happened in Uvalde, Texas. That is just there's a lot to go through. There's a lot of details on that, and look, a lot of different moving parts to the story, of course. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through what we know, including some details about the person who did this, as well as taking a focus on the politicians. So that's a great discussion that we're going to have on some of the politicians, their reactions, and just how much money they have been taking from the gun industry. We also are going to talk about Beto O'Rourke. Again, this is really interesting. Speaking about politicians and actually fake reactions, we have one that I think is legit. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to give you my perspective. We got Paul Gosar and Candace Owens being horrible on this issue as well. And then, to try to change gears a little bit, we have racist policing. So great. Awesome. As in terrible. So again, it's going to be a super, super heavy show today. I apologize, but again, this is the news cycle. It is the country that we live in, and these details are very important. So now, let's see. Any updates on Cisneros? This, as far as I know, that she is still behind by about 170 to 180 votes. That is, of course, very, very, very slim margin, and she will be fighting. And I think that's really, really good. So it's good to see her continue to fight. He's ahead by 177, so it's really a very, very razor-thin, super close margin. Just imagine for a second, had she not had all of that dark corporate money arrayed against her. O'Rourke responds to Abbot in press conference, polling 80%, 48% approve, 42% disapprove. Oh, it's interesting. There's polling on that. All right, so yeah, wafer thin. So we're gonna see what happens. Is it within the margin of having a recount? We don't necessarily know. Are there still any votes coming in? I don't know. And so that is. Man, that is such a close race. All right. Anyway, we're going to start out here with, of course, the mass shooting. So why don't we dive into it? Before we do, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Okay. So just a week after 10 people were killed in a mass shooting in Buffalo, we had another one. This time it was a elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. It's the Robb Elementary School. That is now the second deadliest mass shooting in a school since 2012's Sandy Hook massacre. And so, and you believe it, it's been 10 years. And yet, we still have not done anything. Now, that's not by accident. But let me give you more details about this. At least 19 children and 2 adults were killed, 17 injured. That's not counting the shooter, of course, who was killed by police, or specifically a special unit. And look, alongside the other police, you had Customs and Border Patrol agents that were there. Now, that gunman has been, of course, identified. And so, look, yesterday there were a lot of conflicting details that had come out. Obviously, right after a mass shooting, you're going to have a lot of different reports. Some reports said that they had taken this person alive. Other reports said no, that they did not take him alive. And there were, of course, different reports about how many people were killed. But now we have more details. And so I'm going to share them with you. Now, the shooter, of course, is identified as 18-year-old Salvador Ramos. He was a student at Uvalde High School, lived in the area, of course. He was a U.S. citizen. I think that's very important to note, because already you've had Republicans come out and claim that this is an immigration issue. U.S. citizen. No, this doesn't have anything to do with illegal immigration, but anyway, he apparently, according to some of the profile that was put together, very, very few friends, some home troubles, I think a part-time job at Wendy's, lived with his grandma, no, girlfriends, but a very, very big love of guns. Loves some guns. And his Instagram, of course, before it was taken down, showed that love of guns. Now, in fact, on his 18th birthday, he went and bought 2 guns. That was actually literally the first thing that he did, was buy 2 AR-15s. You know why? It's because Texas allowed him to do so. I'll get to those details later. Now, an Instagram from Ramos did say the teenager had sent him a photo showing receipts for a gun that he bought from Daniel Defense, a gun manufacturer, reported the Daily Dot, and an Instagram account identified by news outlets as belonging to Ramos showed him posing with what appears to be a semi-automatic weapon. A former classmate also said that Ramos texted him photos of a firearm and a bag full of ammunition just days before the attack. Other posts on social media, of course, have him saying, just prior to the attack, I'm going to go attack an elementary school. So now, look, this kid had some issues, some serious problems, anger issues, used to get into fights all the time, had done some self-harm, apparently telling somebody that it was fun to use knives on his own face. So, again, incredibly disturbed person. Incredibly disturbed person. So now on Tuesday morning, authorities say that Ramos had shot his grandmother and then drove a car, crashed it near Robb Elementary School. Police pursued him as he ran into the school. He was wearing a tactical style vest, carrying that rifle. However, he was wearing this vest, but it didn't actually have ballistic plating inside of it. However, these police officers apparently did not engage in this. And so, or at least did not, they didn't necessarily go after him the way that I think a lot of people should. There's a lot of criticism allowed towards police officers in that they had actually ended up waiting until he had barricaded himself into the building. Now, of course, once he got into the building, he basically shot everybody. Whoever was in his way, he mowed him down. Now, this is according to Texas DPS spokesperson Chris Olivares, saying that once he was inside the building, officers were at a disadvantage, saying, quote, "There was not sufficient manpower at the time, and their primary focus was to preserve any loss of life. They started breaking windows around the school to try to evacuate children and teachers while that was going on." Now, Customs and Border Patrol agents did arrive to the scene and joined the police who were already stationed at this school. So, look, Texas talks about hardening schools, right? That school already had an armed officer there. That armed officer chose to hide in this case. And because of that alleged body armor, which actually, again, didn't actually have body armor inside of it. So now, this situation, to me, again, it looks like somebody who was very, very disturbed, had access to guns, when very likely he shouldn't have. And now you had 21 innocent people, 19 kids around the ages of 8 to 10. Now they're dead. And 2 faculty members. It's horrifying. Now, State Senator Roland Gutierrez told CNN on Tuesday evening that that Ramos had no problem accessing those weapons. And of course, there's a reason why. The gun lobby. It is easier to get a gun in this country than it is to get, for example, what this kid needed, mental health care. To get therapy. I mean, look, I've got some numbers to back that up, by the way. According to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, there are only about 8,300 practicing child psychiatrists in the United States for the more than 15 million young people who need them. And according to a U.S. News report, about 37% of the U.S. population of 122 million Americans, they were living in areas experiencing mental health professional shortages. And by the way, even if you do have mental health care in that area, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can afford them. And there's that. And of course, there's stigma against getting mental health care, especially for young people. And so now COVID, of course, made that worse, but it's always been really bad. Now, guns, of course, are very, very easy to get, especially in Texas, thanks to Governor Greg Abbott, who signed a bunch of bills making it very much easier to legally obtain weapons. In fact, one of those bills actually allows people who are 18 years or older to legally purchase long guns, including shotguns and rifles. So, yeah, that's why he was, as soon as he turned 18, was able to go into a gun shop and legally buy these weapons. As many weapons as he wants. Police had recovered 2 AR-15 style rifles from the scene at the primary school, according to the Houston Chronicle. So again, very, very easy for him to go and get these weapons and ammunition to carry out this heinous act. And it's pretty much the same story in all of these mass shootings, whether they have a political motive, such as like in Buffalo, for example, or in this case, an incredibly disturbed person that's lashing out. The thread that ties all of this together was easy access to guns. And that's it. Now, again, this has made being a school-aged child in America more dangerous than being a police officer. I'm not kidding. Turns out, according to a study, more school-aged children in the United States died from gun violence than on-duty U.S. police officers or even global military conflicts. This was in 2017. From 1999 to 2017, there were 38,942 gun deaths among 5 to 18-year-olds. Isn't that amazing? And there were far less on-duty police officers that were killed during that period of time. Now you hear people talking about, oh my God, being a police officer is such a dangerous job. It's so dangerous. Look at this, they're getting mowed down. And yet it's more dangerous just going to school in this country or going to the grocery store in this country. In fact, according to Dr. Charles Hennekins, the study's senior author and academic advisor to the medical college, and again, this is the person who, the group that did the study is the Florida Atlantic University Schmidt College of Medicine, found that, Charles Hennekins said this: "It is sobering that in 2017, there were 144 police officers who died in the line of duty, and about 1,000 active duty military throughout the world who died, whereas 2,462 school-aged children were killed by firearms." Now, that was years ago. Since 2017, do you know how much mass shootings have increased? 97%. 97%. Now, Republicans said that after Sandy Hook, Newtown, or every other mass shooting, oh, you know the problem, how we solve this problem? We need more guns. We need more guns. We need more guns in the schools. We need more guns in the streets. We need to loosen gun laws. And that's what they've done. Well, what's the result? This is simple math. You have more guns, you have more gun deaths. You have easier access to guns. You have people getting guns that shouldn't have them and then using them. Again, this is very, very simple. Even an idiot can understand this. And all the people that are arguing right now, like, oh, how dare you? How dare you say these things? You know the truth, but you're not willing to say it. That I value guns more than life, more than the lives of children. Just be honest about it. Just say it. Just say it. I value guns more than kids. Because that's what your position is, like it or not. Just be honest about it. This problem is getting worse. It's getting worse, not better. Back when there was an assault weapons ban, there were less mass shootings, period. It's not that they didn't happen. They were less likely to happen. When that expired, guess what we had? We had an increase. This isn't rocket science, it's math. For those who point out, but it's mental health, it's video games, it's violent movies. Weird how every other single country has mental health, people that are mentally ill, video games, and violent movies, and yet they're nowhere near what we have in gun deaths. You know what the difference is? It's the guns. This is very, very simple to figure out. Very simple. Now, if you're listening to this and you look at these numbers, because you know the truth, you might lie to yourself, you might lie to the people around you, but deep in your heart, you know, this is all true. These are all facts. And you think, yeah, but my guns. Well, then let's just be honest. That you believe that your right to buy as many weapons as possible is simply more important than children's lives. Just be honest. That gun manufacturer profits are more important than our nation's children. That's a fact. Because we have seen the result of that position, that thinking. You want to sugarcoat it, rationalize it all you want, but at the end of the day, you're on the side of children dying. Just be honest. Just own it. Let's go to the other side of this equation. Let's get NRA bribes. We got bribery here. Following the deadly mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, which ended the lives of 19 children and 2 adults, politicians have been all over social media giving their thoughts and prayers, while, of course, promising to do absolutely nothing. Why is that? Well, it's because of the money. So now I want to point out here Jordan Uhl, who is a contributor to TYT. and does an excellent show. And he has decided to come out and shame these politicians by posting the amount of legal bribes that they have taken from the gun lobby under their fake outrage over dead children. So I want to show you that. Just an example of, the things that he had been posting. Okay. Chuck Grassley, 2 days of killing innocent children and teachers. Sickening, heartbreaking. Schools should be a safe place for students and educators. We stand with Robb Elementary, an entire Uvalde, Texas community. And he posts, oh, look, he got $226,007 from the NRA. Average gun deaths in a state of Iowa, 264. Oh, interesting. Let's move on. We got another one in here. Senator Marsha Blackburn, horrified and heartbroken to learn of the significant loss of life in the shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Please join me in lifting their loved ones up in prayer. Thank you to the local first responders working on scene. Blackburn took $1,306,130 from the NRA. The average gun deaths in the state, Tennessee, 1,103. There's more. Senator Pat Toomey, Pennsylvania. Today I join all Americans in mourning those whose lives have been stolen in Uvalde. This tragedy is as horrifying as it is heartbreaking. My deepest condolences are with the families and loved ones of those killed, with those who are injured, and with the entire state of Texas. He took $1,475,448 from the gun lobby. The average gun deaths, Pennsylvania, 1,503. Going on. Mitch McConnell, horrified and heartbroken by reports. I'm sorry, let me try that again. Horrified and heartbroken by reports of the disgusting violence directed at innocent school kids in Uvalde, Texas. The entire country is praying for the children, families, teachers, and staff when the first responders on the scene. He took $1,267,139. Average gun deaths, 690. Mitt Romney, Mittens Romneyton III, Esquire. This man who claims to be, so moderate. So moderate. He says, grief overwhelms the soul. Children slaughtered, lives extinguished, parents' hearts wrenched, incomprehensible. I offer prayer and condolence, but I know that is grossly inadequate. We must find answers. Well, we can find the answers in your checkbook, Mitt. NRA donations, $13,647,000. $647,676. Average gun deaths in the state of Utah, 365. One for each day of the year. So, thoughts and prayers, everybody. Thoughts and prayers. We must find answers. Except the most obvious answer, which is to do something about the guns. But to be fair, this is not just Democrats. Or I'm sorry, this is not just Republicans, it's Democrats too. Democrats too. Look, here's one of the most damning things that Jordan posts. Texas Democrat Representative Henry Cuellar doesn't plan to give away NRA donation in the aftermath of gun massacres. I'm heartbroken by the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School. 15 families in the South Texas community and in the entire nation are in mourning. Henry Cuellar, one of the most corrupt corporate Democrats in the House. The man who voted against protecting women's reproductive rights and has an A rating with the NRA and is also under investigation by the FBI. And there was a primary race last night between Henry Cuellar and progressive Jessica Cisneros. Okay? Now guess which side House leadership was on when it came to that race. Well, before I get to that, and you probably already know the answer, but just bear with me for a minute. I want to give you Nancy Pelosi's statement on this. She says this: words are inadequate to describe the agony and outrage at the cold-blooded massacre of little school children and a teacher, by the way, it's 2 faculties, members, at Robb Elementary School today. This monstrous shooting stole the futures of precious children who will never experience the joys of graduating from school, chasing the career of their dreams, falling in love, and even starting a family of their own. The hearts of all Americans are broken as we pray for the families left forever shattered and a community left forever scarred by the unspeakable grief of losing a loved one. We also extend our sympathies to all those who have lost a loved one to gun violence over time, as this horrible crime deepens their suffering. We are united in our deep gratitude for the heroes who put their lives on the line to respond to this deadly mass shooting. Across the nation, Americans are filled with righteous fury in the wake of multiple incomprehensible mass shootings in the span of just days. This is a crisis of existential proportions. For our children and for every American, for too long, some in Congress have offered hollow words after these shootings while opposing all efforts to save lives. It is time for all of Congress to heed the will of the American people and join in enacting the House-passed bipartisan common sense life-saving legislation into law. Nancy Pelosi. Here is James Clyburn, House Whip. He says this: while we wait to learn more, my heart goes out to Robb Elementary School and the entire Uvalde, Texas community in the wake of today's tragedy. Our children ought to be able to go to school without fear of gun violence. When is enough enough? The time for action is long overdue. Both Pelosi and Clyburn, along with Steny Hoyer, and a lot of the Democratic establishment, both supported wholeheartedly Henry Cuellar, a man with an A rating from the NRA. And it wasn't just Dem leadership, massive spending by PACs, special interest groups, all coming to support Henry Cuellar over an actual progressive. Look, AOC pointed this out. Here's what she tweeted. On the day of a mass shooting and weeks after news of the Supreme Court's impending decision to overturn Roe, Democratic Party leadership rallied for a pro-NRA, anti-choice incumbent under investigation in a close primary. The difference between them, by the way, is about 177 votes. They pushed so hard, dropped so much money on this race. Mainstream media smeared Cisneros. But yet they support this guy. This guy. She says, accountability. Democratic Party leadership rallied for a pro-NRA anti-choice incumbent under investigation. Robocalls, fundraisers, all of it. Accountability isn't partisan. This was an utter failure of leadership. Congress should not be an incumbent protection racket, and sadly it is treated as such by far too many. The fact is those who fail their communities deserve to lose. They don't need rescuing from powerful leaders who state that they fight for gun safety, the right to choose, and more. So, you want to talk about hollow words? I don't think anybody is more hollow than Democratic leadership. I mean, Republicans at least tell you that they're monsters. They're right up front about it. Yes, we are monstrous, horrible people. We will wreck you if you vote for us. Hey, honesty, right? They tell you exactly what they're going to do. But Democrats lie to you. They give you pretty little lies. Oh, don't worry. We're gonna fight for you. We're gonna protect you. Don't worry. Just vote harder. Elect us. We'll do something about it. And of course, when you do, when you elect them, they do this. All that money given to the Democrats, the Democratic Party, the DNC. Guess where it went? Henry Cuellar's pocket. To trash a progressive. Disgusting. Disgusting. Speaking of hollow, by the way, let's go to Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin. Now, he says that he would do anything I can to move common sense gun legislation forward. Except, of course, for the one thing that might actually move gun control, common sense gun legislation forward, and that would be eliminating the filibuster. He refuses to do that. So nothing, useless, worthless, completely and utterly empty. And then he goes and he justifies it by saying this. Everyone wants to go filibuster, filibuster, filibuster. Get rid of that. That's the easy way out. How? If the filibuster is eliminated, what makes you think they won't reverse it immediately if they don't like what we do? Hey, as long as we're doing hypotheticals, Joe, what's to prevent them from doing that anyway, once they get back into power, after Democrats get the floor wiped with them in the midterms? Which is a pretty good possibility at this point, because Democrats have delivered nothing to their base, but failure after failure after failure. Oh, but you understand? He got a watered-down infrastructure package and a little bit of COVID relief forever ago. What have they delivered since? Nothing. Nothing. Hey, look, turns out if you actually try to do things, you might actually win. But no, they don't want to. They don't want to win. He then says, I'm just hoping we don't throw things out again and politicize things to make a political point. We're for this and you're for that. That's crazy. What? He said that it's also necessary to have GOP support in order to enact meaningful change. Look, we know Republicans will do absolutely nothing. They've been very honest about that. They don't care. They don't actually care. Thoughts and prayers, that's all they have. So, look, they've blocked every single gun bill that has been brought up. That's a fact. Joe Manchin knows that. And Joe Manchin, what he's doing is he is refusing to do his actual job, which is to legislate. And is putting the onus, very conveniently, on Republicans who he knows are completely bought off by the gun lobby. So all he knows is that he can do nothing and blame Republicans. And, well, hey, that's a pretty good excuse. Joe Manchin doesn't care about your kids. Almost none of them do. All the elites, these are the people that send their kids to private schools. But then, you know, when yours go to public school and get murdered because they refuse to do a goddamn thing, they don't care. Doesn't affect them. Not at all. These are your so-called leaders. Vote out every incumbent. All right. Moving on.
You are doing nothing. You are offering us nothing. You said this was not predictable. This is totally predictable when you choose not to do anything.
Sir, you are out of line.
You are out of line. Please to stop this from happening.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Please. I can't believe you exit.
A tragedy happened here. You need to leave. This is not the place to do that.
This is on you until you choose to do something different. This will continue to happen. Somebody needs to stand up for the children of this state, or they will continue to be killed, just like they were killed in Uvalde yesterday.
So that was Texas gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke crashing a press conference held by Governor Greg Abbott over the Uvalde shooting. So now look, that video was taken by the Statesman reporter Luz Moreno Lozano. So look, I wanted to give her credit for that. Obviously, you could hear O'Rourke saying, "This is on you. This is on you. This was totally predictable." Look, he ain't wrong. And let me explain why. So look, we know that Abbott over the years has loosened gun laws in Texas. They have had 8 mass shootings in the last 13 years. And their response was to loosen gun laws each time. Every single time. Look, the most recent was a permitless carry bill, which allows most Texans to carry handguns openly in public without going through training or having to get a permit. So, you want a gun? You want a gun? No, you don't even have to know how to shoot it. Just, here you go. Take all the guns that you want. Have them all. But, healthcare? No, you don't get any of that. That would be socialism. But here's your gun. So that's what they're doing. Long guns like rifles and shotguns had already been allowed to be carried without a permit. They also previously lowered the age of being able to legally buy a gun to 18, down from 21. And in response to this, Texas Republicans are saying, oh, what we need now is to have more guns and more cops in school. Well, again, there was already an armed school officer stationed there in the school. He exchanged fire with the gunman before the gunman went inside the building. What happened? I thought you had to have a good guy with a gun. Well, there was a good guy with a gun, and apparently it didn't work. Didn't work at all. Look, in Buffalo, by the way, at the supermarket, there was also an armed security guard. What happened to him? That armed security guard was shot and killed by the gunman. Why? His service weapon was ineffective against the shooter's body armor. Now, Ramos was wearing a vest, but didn't have the armor inside of it. But it looked like he did. So, look, none of the things that Abbott had done, or the Republican Party, have made the state any safer. It's actually worse now. More children die from gun violence than on-duty police officers. It is actually literally safer to be a cop than a school-aged child. Let that sink in. How completely messed up is this? I mean, it's insane. And the United States is the only place that this actually happens on a regular basis. But when you point that out, well, you get Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, in this case, calling you a sick son of a bitch. Because that's what that was. How dare you make it a political issue? How dare you? You know why they're desperate to not politicize this? Because it would point out the fact that they can do something, but choose not to. That's what's important here. Look, they're desperate not to politicize it because they control gun policy and refuse to pass any meaningful restrictions because they're paid by the gun lobby not to. Now, during the conference, this is before O'Rourke walked in, Abbott did tell the crowd this. And this is to show you, to kind of illustrate what the entire conversation really was about. The reality is, as horrible as what happened, it could have been worse. Could have been worse. 19 children are dead. 2 faculty members dead. Interesting. I mean, sure, I guess it could have been worse. But this is the type of thing you're talking about? Sending thoughts and prayers? That's the entire thing. So, look, this is a result of policy. Political stuff. Policy that allowed somebody who had some serious issues to easily acquire deadly weapons and a large amount of ammunition. And then, of course, they used it to murder the kids. And that's it. They don't want it to be political because the politics are bad. The politics are bad for them. Real bad. Again, you have vast majority of support for doing the simplest of measures, things like background checks. And the Republican Party will not allow that to happen. And look, the fact is that in this country, it is easier to buy a gun than to purchase medication, like Sudafed, for example. It's easier in this country to get a gun than adopt a pet, where you actually have to fill out paperwork, even have somebody come visit your home in some cases, or to find a therapist. You can even buy lawn darts in this country because it killed children, but you can buy a gun that has killed way more children than lawn darts. Pretty soon, in Texas, you're not going to be able to get an abortion. But you could still buy a gun with no waiting period. You have a longer waiting period to get an abortion. This is our country right now. O'Rourke is absolutely right. And I honestly do believe that, look, as much as I crap on politicians, and trust me, I do. I've crapped on O'Rourke before. Not literally, but I've criticized him before, as not being progressive. But I think on this issue, he actually does mean it. I think this is an issue that O'Rourke has cared about, honestly. And again, I actually regularly question if politicians believe the things that they're saying. But in the case, again, for him, I do believe that he is pretty genuine over his on his anger of this and his desire to pass gun control, because he doesn't get paid off by the gun lobby. Yeah, as some people point out, he is of course he's a corporate Democrat, and I pointed that out. But at the same time, there are corporate Democrats who do have these issues, these pet issues. And it sounds ridiculous to call this a pet issue because it is such an important issue. But there are issues that they actually do care about. And if they got into power, would actually try to do something about. And I do believe that O'Rourke would try to do something about gun laws, about gun deaths, obviously. And again, I regularly go against Democrats and Republicans too for doing theater. Certainly. But again, you have to be fair that there are issues that some of these politicians do actually care about and want actually to do something about. So I think it's good on him. I think this got a lot of attention, and that's a good thing because attention, of course, to this outrage will create, I think, hopefully a pressure wave. Because look, nothing is going to happen without massive amounts of pressure. Massive amounts of not just private, but also political pressure from the outside. And so hopefully enough pressure might spur something to happen. But again, given how it hasn't already, I don't have a lot of hopes. It's sad. All right. Let's go to some more ghouls. All right. Let me just bring this up here. One of the worst people in Congress weighed into Tuesday's mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, which took the lives of 21 people, 19 children, 2 faculty members. And of course, this person happened to do so in one of the worst ways. Taking to social media, Paul Gosar tweeted this about the shooter. We already know, fool. It's a transsexual, leftist, illegal alien named Salvatore Ramos. It's apparently your kind of trash. Wow. So now that tweet was made after Ramos was identified as a U.S. citizen who grew up in Uvalde. Now, Gozar did delete that a couple of hours later because, well, it was not true. Kind of shocking that he deleted it. But of course, that's not enough. Let's see. Matt Bender had pointed this out on Twitter, that right-wingers and 4chan users have been spreading around pictures of a completely random transgender Redditor, claiming that she or they were the shooter. So now Bender reposted a photo, which was posted by the very same trans Redditor, who had been made aware that their picture was being spread around social media, accusing them of being the shooter. And they're like, no, that's not me. I'm still alive. The person who did the shooting is dead. So now this again was released to debunk the disinformation, to try to claim that this was perpetuated by a trans person. Bender then spoke to the person in the photo, saying they are aware of my tweet. They want the disinformation debunked, and the post falsely accused them, corrected/taken down. Now, among the social media accounts that shared those images is a Facebook page called North Florida Patriots, not surprising. That page has since corrected its post. Oh, good. With its operator stating that they won't be lectured by people looking to make the shooting a political issue and turn it into a gun grab. Again, oh, gotta protect the guns, my little baby guns. Gotta protect them at all costs. At all costs, they must hug and kiss my guns. Maybe do more. No, look, I hate to break it to you guys, but guess what? Gun control is political, is a political issue. You know why? Because it's a policy issue. Policy can actually make changes to this. Now, I love how the right wing immediately jumped into action to make this into a culture war issue involving both trans people and immigration. And when it turned out to be not true, after they shared this, which by the way could have put this person in great danger somehow, they scream, "Oh, don't you dare make it political. Don't you dare make it political because I tried to and it failed." Now, look, as far as the shooting goes, the actual shooter, as far as we know, it wasn't political. There wasn't a political motive. That person had no apparent political ideology. Unlike, of course, what we had for the Buffalo shooter. And when you're dealing with the facts, you know this. And look, let's be honest. I'm going to call myself out here for a moment, okay? Look, yesterday when this was breaking news, when there was no actual information that was out about this, about who the shooter was, I did make a comment saying that how much how much you want to bet that this shooter was white. Yeah, I'm calling myself out. I was absolutely wrong. Not white. He was Latino. Now, I admit that I went and I rushed to that conclusion with absolutely no evidence. I'm sorry about that. I apologize. That was flippant. It was dumb. I need to do better as a presenter of news. Okay, that was very irresponsible of me to do. Okay, so again, gotta correct myself here and gotta come correct with the facts. That said, did we get anything like that from Paul Gozar or from 4chan or from any of the people that were spreading this conspiracy theory around? No, not at all. No apology, no realization that what he did wrong, just deleted it, gone. No addressing the issue and saying, sorry guys, I was wrong about that. It's just gone. It's just gone. Deleted the tweet and moved on. In fact, one of his most recent tweets from the time that I had looked a few hours ago now, his most recent tweet actually attacked immigrants. Because of course it is. of course. But what's worse than Paul Gosar is actually what Candace Owens did. She weighed in just a few hours ago. Now, Gosar tweeted that yesterday. But today, Candace Owens comes out and says this: what drives an 18-year-old to murder innocent children? I don't know. But judging by the photos of him cross-dressing, we can assume that there were plenty of signs that he was mentally disturbed and abused by adults in his life. Societal cowardice ignored those plenty of signs. So immediately she's making the connection, oh, that person was a transgender or was cross-dresser. Obviously mental illness. Disgusting. And by the way, wasn't even him. She posted that. That's still up. Thousands of likes. Thousands of likes. They don't care. She doesn't care at all. Look, actually admitting what you've done something wrong, if you're actually to take ownership of saying something not only horrific, obviously in her case, and in Gosar's case, sure, admitting that that take was disastrously wrong would involve you not being a terrible person and would actually show that you have a tiny bit of personal growth, the potential for personal growth and progress. But of course, they didn't do that. They didn't do that at all. Oh, no. No, not here. Not ever. Not on the right wing. Not on the right wing. In fact, she went on. She went on to attack trans people. An adult man that wants to dress up like a female is a glaring symbol of mental disease, she says. And society driven by cowardice prevents the topic from being discussed honestly and openly. All of our children are at risk because we refuse to acknowledge and instead encourage mental illness. Lastly, if you think the government that just spent 2 years masking, force vaccinating, and threatening your children, driving abuse, suicide rates, and drug overdoses, if you think that government wants gun control to keep them safe, you are utterly delusional. Now 1 inch. Mental illness. So there it is. Candace Owens attacking trans people, equating that with mental illness, and then equating both of those things with violence. When in reality, of course, we've had more children killed in this country by gun violence than police officers who were killed in line of duty. And by the way, it also saying this kind of stuff in a country where the overwhelming majority of mass shooters happen to be young white males. Now, not in this case. And you could cherry pick out several other cases, right, that were high profile, of like a black shooter, for example, or a Muslim shooter. But in reality, again, the vast majority are generally white young men who are not transgender, who are not cross-dressers, okay? No, they're radicalized white right-wing men. Or not even radicalized, sometimes there's no political motive at all. And they're just young men who decide one day that they are going to get a gun because they have easier access to guns than anything else, including mental health care. And they decide they're going to use it. Disgusting. And by the way, any right winger that wants to talk about mental illness. Oh, we're going to do, it's mental illness. Why don't you do something about mental illness? Oh, right, because you don't. And it's real strange, too, to blame just that, because apparently, according to right wingers, the United States is the only place where you have a large amounts of mental illness. Or apparently we're the only place where you can, play violent video games and watch violent movies and listen to rock music. Only in America, apparently. No, America is the only place. Other countries have all that stuff. America is the only place that also has large amounts of mass shootings. And I wonder what it is, that underlines that. I don't know. Maybe it's the easy access to guns. Just gonna go out on a limb here. Easy access to guns. All right. Let's move on. Switching gears. As if this is any better. A black Alabama pastor was recently arrested doing something nice for his neighbors. Now, apparently, this pastor was arrested for watering plants. Yes, watering plants while black. Now, he was doing this for a neighbor who was out of town who had given him express permission to take care of his house. So now Michael Jennings, a preacher at Vision of Abundant Life Ministries, was doing this favor after church services on a Sunday when another neighbor called the police to report a suspicious person. This is according to WIAT TV. So now Jennings said, my neighbor goes out of town a lot and they wanted me to watch their house and keep their flowers watered. Super nice thing for him to do. Wonderful. Wonderful. However, when the police arrived, well, you can guess what happened. The Childersburg man said he explained who he was to the cops and what he was doing. Nonetheless, the police demanded his ID. Now, he wasn't in a car and he wasn't doing anything wrong. Why did you need to see his ID? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Now, Jennings said, quote, the officer said, give me some ID. And I said, no, I don't have to give no ID because there ain't no crime been committed. I said, but what I will do is I'll tell you I am Pastor Jennings and I live right across the street there. And I said, you can go ask my wife. He then, of course, continued watering the plants. However, as soon as a third officer, there are 3 cops now. Instead of 1 or 2 officers, now they're bringing a third. One was the one that just arrived was a sergeant. Jennings said that he got out of the car and he's already fired up. I'm telling them, you're making a mistake. This is wrong, what y'all are doing. The sergeant was very angered by this. This uppity black guy telling me what to do. And he said this, quote, shut up and listen. You talk too much. I said, you don't tell me to shut up, boy. I'm a grown man. I like that. I like that response. You going to jail. That's it, the sergeant said, according to Jennings. Lock him up. And that's exactly what happened. He was arrested and charged with obstructing governmental operation. What governmental operation was he obstructing? He was obstructing the police officer harassing him? Is that what? Because there wasn't a crime being committed. He was there with permission. And he was watering the plants. Again, okay, so look, what you may not understand if you're surprised by this, because, some people are, okay, is what this pastor did, according to police officers, he had committed the ultimate sin. And that's daring to disrespect a police officer as a black man. It is, for them, it is unforgivable. But by the way, I got to point out that nowhere in the law books can you be arrested and charged for talking back to a cop. There's no law there that says that you can't. Yes, you can be disrespectful to a cop. But see, it doesn't matter if you're black, because look, for one, cops are drunk on their power. I think a lot of them are. Not all of them, I think a lot of them are. Okay? And they often do these things. And the reason that us white people like look like me, don't generally have these interactions with police is because they tend to take these things out and do these power moves, do these power trips against black people. And it's because they can, it's because they've gotten away with it. And look, if you think this is a new phenomenon, it's not. It's been happening for decades, probably a lot longer than that. Maybe, I don't know, since civil rights, even before. It's just now, these days, we're hearing about it. And we're seeing these things play out on video. Now, as for the neighbors part, let me just say this. Don't call the cops. Okay? Just don't. Unless there's an actual crime that's going, that's taking place. Like you see somebody breaking windows and it's like, okay, it's time. Now it's time to call the cops. But you just see somebody there walking on the street or jogging, ain't no need to call the cops. Now, that neighbor said, and she had told police that she made a huge mistake and had begged them not to arrest him after recognizing him as a both friend and neighbor. How much of a friend and neighbor is that if you don't recognize this person? I mean, again, you look, like if you look at a black person and you only see a black person and think suspicious, how good of a friend are you? Honestly. And again, I'm not going to say that she's like outright Klan hood wearing racist, but I am saying that this is a great illustration of implicit bias. She might know him and think, no, that's my friend, that's my neighbor, that's the good pastor. But if you see somebody and you don't immediately recognize him and he's black, and the first thing you want to do is call the police, there is some implicit bias that is happening immediately. Now, she then, again, had attempted to say, no, this person, he's not suspicious. I know him. He's not doing any harm. But it was too late. It was too late. It's too late. Because, again, Jennings disrespected that police officer and his very, very paper-thin skin. This is what an abuse of power looks like. Now, Jennings was released, and he said this, quote, "Last I checked, watering roses ain't no crime. You see all the people, blacks being arrested for some of the most silly stuff, but being arrested for watering flowers, it was embarrassing. In the middle of the neighborhood with all the disrespect I got, being handcuffed and took off, neighbors down there was coming out their house." Again, here you have that situation where you can't do anything while black without being, again, arrested, accosted by police, and having your neighbors call the cops on you for being suspicious. Now, as far as the police are concerned, I don't think there's any kind of small reforms that are going to solve racism in policing. No. There's got to be some big shakeups here. For one, racist cops need to be fired. And most importantly, the culture needs to change in policing. There are different policy proposals, as far as making sure that cops are held accountable for some of these arrests. There's a lot more that you can do. But we ain't doing any of it. And that, I think, is the worst crime of all. We see this problem that's happening, and it ain't getting fixed. All right. And not be rehired at another police department. Yes. Yes. Again, that's just one thing. There's a lot that needs to be done. Okay. So, let's read super chats real quick because I do have to get out of here. The show went super, super heavy, and not in a good way. So yeah, let's see if there are any super chats today. There are not, at least not the ones that showed up. Let me see about that. Nope. Okay, no super chats today. Let's see. Boulder Crypto Sissy Dragon, thank you for being a member. I appreciate that. Let's go to Twitch. Toolman Tim 51 says, after resubbing with Prime, appreciate that. For 10 months, he was a Latino shooter, so they had to kill him, and he would be called a terrorist. But the white shooter in Buffalo was taken alive, and it's being blamed on COVID isolation. Talk about privileges. Oh, there you go. Indeed. Indeed. All right. Gabby Mathis, thank you for the very kind $5. Really appreciate that. Very, very, very kind. Oh, here we go. Now we have them shown up. Jonathan Leiter says, there's another reason for Medicare for all. Mental health needs to be part of basic health care. There's no shame in talk therapy. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you actually talk about or really, really cared about mental health care, then you would be in favor of universal health care, Medicare for all. It's very, very simple. But again, Republicans, not at all interested. Wonder why. Boulder Crypto Sissy Dragon also says, if you need an AR-15, you should rethink your choices. All right. So thank you again for the very kind super chats and messages. Really, really appreciate that. And by the way, thank you, Jonathan Leiter, for being a member. You can become a member by hitting the join button below. Really appreciate that. All right. So that said, later on tonight, I'm going to be on a podcast with Jen Perlman. So I'm assuming that we're probably going to end up talking about this quite a bit, but maybe some other stuff as well. I don't know if that's going to be live, but I will tweet out a link. So follow me at Jeff's Politics, and I will tweet that out. That's at 7:15 Eastern. I will be speaking with Jen. So tune in for that. That said, the rest of you, which podcast? Generational Change. That's what it's called. So Jen Perlman's podcast. So I will, again, tweet that out. All right. Heavy show today. Thank you. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Big, massive dump.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. Please clap.
Disappointed!
Obama!
No.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.